And it goes back to that Henry Hill guy. So, yeah, it's an interesting character that he's like turned himself into like this myth, and you see him on like the Howard Stern interviews. Have you ever
Yeah,
watched any of
yeah,
those?
yeah,
He's like a total like I don't want to say I don't want to be mean, but he's a total joke.
yeah. Well, for example, when I do this, Jessica gets angry if I'm just wearing a white shirt. You should dress up.
Oh
I said,
yeah,
I'm not fucking Brad Pitt.
yeah,
No one's gonna give a
yeah,
shit what I'm wearing. You know, unless I'm jerking myself off on
yeah.
screen. No
That's
one's
what
gonna
he's
fucking
saying though. The guy
yeah,
sounds crazy.
yeah,
You know what I mean? He sounds like a maniac.
yeah.
So it's obvious that like he probably did tell. I guess he probably did tell someone he got patted on the back after a
And you know,
court hearing.
if you and I ever watched that movie, we're doing like a running commentary. As the scenes came up, well, there's that famous Tommy scene with Pesci where he's going, "You think what makes me funny? You think I'm
Yeah,
funny?" What? Everyone who that has happened in every scene, and anyone who's eaten out in an Italian restaurant in New York or New Jersey area has seen something like that. There was nothing unique about it. It's a great
yeah,
scene. Pesci does well
yeah,
playing this little psychotic, but you know,
yeah. Well,
whatever.
what's good about it is the way he portrays the psychotic. It gets quiet in the
Yeah,
way Leota plays off of him, and then the way they laugh, and
yeah,
all the tension kind of like goes away. Yeah, the tension just kind of goes away. That's what makes it work really well.
yeah.
Another filmmaker I didn't hear you say anything about. We've talked Bergman, we've talked Kurosawa, Scorsese. I didn't hear you talk about Hitchcock. What do you think are his best films?
A very good popcorn director, but he's not in a league with
Yeah,
Kurosawa or them.
yeah, I agree.
The best films are those where he took chances. Rope, Strangers
Do
on a
you like?
Train,
Okay, I feel like Rope's interesting.
but it's a play. It was originally a
Yeah.
play.
Okay.
That there's Frenzy, which came out in '71, is a more realistic portrayal of a psychopath than Psycho is. Although
Interesting.
it's
Okay, I've
not as
never
good
seen Frenzy.
I prefer English Hitchcock in the '30s before he came to Hollywood. Rear Windows is very overrated.
Okay.
Vertigo being the #1 film for a decade is a joke. It's not nearly in the class. Although it's better than the shitty film that replaced it.
Yeah. Well, okay. What about that? The Sight and Sound. I kind of want to pull that up.
Yeah.
And
I did this about a year ago with a fellow who
oh
interviewed me.
yeah, you
But
already did this. Okay.
no, that's fine. Go
Um.
ahead.
So like yeah, what was #1? That 3.5 hour.
Gene Dealman.
Yeah, I couldn't
It's
finish it.
about a woman that
That's the
basically
critics pick.
it's basic. I said it's a film that's twice as long and half as good as Roman Polanski's Repulsion. It's about a woman who basically is a murderess.
Yeah, I think. What are some films you would vote for?
What to put in the greatest?
The top 10. Yeah, that's what these.
Well,
It's
I've
what
always said if
the
I'm
Sight and Sound. They send
if I'm
directors
picking
and critics
if
in
I'm
their top
picking
10.
the top film, it's one of two films. It's either 2001: A Space Odyssey, just because, again,
Okay.
we don't know it has these great lacunae that you can fill in yourself. But I would give a slight edge to Fellini's La Dolce Vita.
Yeah,
It's a film.
I had that in my top
It's
as well.
it's a film that at turns is a great comedy. It has a
Mhm.
great dance number. It's a great drama. The characterization, Marcello Mastroianni is right up there in that performance with what's his face from Killing of a Chinese Bookie, Gazzara.
Yeah.
It the loose structure is very much like Huckleberry Finn. It's comments on religion. It's comments on
Oh, the scene where the Mother Mary, where they think they see
yeah.
the Mother Mary. That scene's incredible. That's one of my favorite scenes
It's
of
based
any film.
upon the Lisbon, Portugal scene from the early 20th century. The Our Lady of Fatima, the scene where Marcello and his father there. We don't. There's something that happened between the father and Marcello, but again, we don't need to know exactly why. The scene, the scenes with the guy who ends up killing his
The professor.
children. Yes,
Yeah,
just
so good.
brilliant. It comes out of nowhere. and then of course the end scene, with the night of debauchery, and then they walk out and
Yeah.
they see the manta ray, and Marcello is doomed there, and he sees the
Yeah.
little blonde girl who's the symbol of savior. She's
Yeah.
innocent, she's fresh. He's not a pervert. He doesn't want to fuck the little girl, but he can't go be with her into a life of betterment because he's a
Yeah.
roue, he's a rake, he's a phony.
Yeah.
Just like I
Yeah.
mentioned this guy in Portrait of Jason, who early on, I think I mentioned this film about this poseur who just talks for an hour and a half. Marcello is a poseur. He's a hollow man, to speak T.S. Eliot. There's nothing there inside of Marcello. No matter
You
how
say
he
he's like
wants-
T.S. Eliot?
Yeah, if you read the poem "The Hollow Man,"
Oh, okay.
the Hollow Man.
Okay. I haven't read that. I've only read his most. I have like a short.
And
I have a
I
short
put Killing
book
of
of
a
his
Chinese
poems,
bookie up there.
like The Wasteland.
I put 4 or 5 Wells films there, along with Kubrick,
I
Doctor
like Strangelove a lot.
Strangelove.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, yeah, Doctor Strangelove is up there.
I like Raging Bull.
Clockwork Orange, Raging Bull, Taxi Driver. I think is the best Scorsese. Raging
Yeah.
Bull is maybe number 2 with Goodfellas. But that, if you just had to pick 3, those are the 3 to pick.
Mhm.
Again, there's 5 or 6 Kurosawas I put up there. There's 3 or 4 Ozus I put up there. A couple of Charlie Chaplins. Chaplin is the only of the big 3 comedians. He's the only one that works today.
Not a fan of Keaton.
Well, Keaton, his most famous film is The General, but all of his films are
General's a good
mechanistic.
film.
It's a great extended scene into a film, but
Okay.
all of his films are mechanistic. There is no emotion. If you watch City Lights, the ending of City Lights, there you get 2 human beings seeing each other. Literally, the blind girl can finally seeing each other for the first time. The Circus is a great film by Charlie Chaplin too. If you get to work it, it's underrated.
Who made The Passion of
Joan of
of
Arc?
Arc?
Yeah, that's one
That's
of
a good
Jessica's
one.
favorite films. That's a great film too. That's Carl Theodor Dreyer. But
Okay.
but a film that's just as good by Dreyer is Vampire.
Okay.
That's Aguirre, The Wrath of God by Herzog.
Oh yeah.
That's
I love Strozek. I love Strozek. by
that's a
Herzog.
very good film. But Aguirre, I think is easily
It's
the
probably
best.
as far as greatness. Yes, yeah, I would agree. But it's that to what you were saying about greatness and what you like. I would say I like Strozek more as far as a film that I'm going to rewatch and have fun with and laugh at. But Aguirre is a towering achievement as far as
Persona,
the craft of film.
Scenes from a Marriage, and
Persona's
Winter
probably my pick. My 2 picks for best film are probably Persona and La Dolce Vita. I would.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
and I've said, technically speaking, and I've said this, Persona is Bergman at his height. Literally, what Bergman is doing is here, he's saying, oh, you guys with the French New Wave, you think you're going to out... He's saying, motherfucker, I'm Ingmar Bergman. Here's my dick. I'm putting it on the table. You try slicing it off. You can't because you're not Ingmar Bergman and you're not at the height of the power.
You can't cut from this angle, and you can't cut from this face to this face and have this face come into the shot perfectly like I can. You can't do it.
Yeah. And it's a total dick thing, and he makes the 2 French guys. The
first 10 minutes is him just fucking
Truffaut,
flexing.
and who's the guy who did Breathless?
Godard.
Godard and
Breathless,
Truffaut are amateurs compared to Bergman.
Oh yeah, I agree completely. I like some Godard films, and I like the 400 Blows. I think I would consider the 400 Blows a great film. I think it's one of the great films about being a kid and just having all these people trying to tell you you can't do things.
And I think it's an okay film, but I don't think it's a great film. If you want to watch here, I'm going to tell you 2 great films. If you want to watch great kids films, one is the follow up to The Cat People. I forget what it's called, The Return of the Cat People, or what. It's basically about a little girl who's the daughter of one of the original cat woman, and she's dealing with her father remarrying, and this is supposed to be a horror film follow-up to a horror film, but it's about the loneliness of a little girl. And the other great one, that's a great kids film, not a great film overall, but a great kids film, is Godzilla's Revenge. It's about a little,
Okay.
it's about a little Japanese boy who's a latchkey kid. This resonated with me deeply as a child. He
Hmm.
and but he fantasizes about Godzilla. When we're not quite sure whether Godzilla is real in this film or whatnot, or is this just the Godzilla of the movies that he's watching on TV? And what happens is he ends up dealing with a couple of gangsters who are out to get him because he stumbles upon something. He's got kids who are bullying him, and then there's this really great uh, B story where there's an old man who's the next door neighbor in the apartment building where he lives, who's just a little too friendly, who's a little too doting on the little boy. And I knew when I was 5, 6, 7 years old, whatever I was when I saw this movie with my kids. All of us 5, 6, or 7 knew that guy's a pervert. That guy wants to get into the pants of the little kid. Hopefully,
Right.
Ashiro is his name, I think. But no, I am the only critic that has ever picked up on this pedophilia thread in there, and that the real threat to the boy in this film about the fictional Godzilla that he fantasizes about is a possible pedophile, and
Uh-huh.
and again, it's all from that boy's point of view, just like with the Cat People sequel. It's
That does sound good. They do.
now
That's
people will slag
What
on
about
Godzilla's Revenge.
Ozu's got Good
That-
Morning, the Ozu film.
Yeah.
That's got the kids. That's a good. I like that one. I think that's a good kids
Yeah.
film.
And some other ones. And the Japanese New Wave was so much better than the French New Wave.
Yeah.
The Insect Woman, Woman in the Dunes.
Oh, yeah.
A number of them whose names I forget. I mean, this the Burmese Harp is another great film, Japanese film. Um, Sancho the Bailiff is a great.
Like the Lone Wolf and the Cub. Have you seen those?
No. Mizuguchi.
Those are like good samurai films. Yeah, they're fun, but they're like 70s and they're a little bit more.
Yeah, by the 70s, samurais films were just entertainment.
This one, it kind of it plays on that entertainment, but also with some serious themes, which makes it fun. And yeah, I haven't watched as much of the Japanese New Wave. I guess I have as like the 50s and the 60s, like the early 60s, 50s, and 40s. Mainly it's Ozu, Kurosawa I've seen, and the guy who did Human Condition, Harakiri,
Yeah.
Samurai Rebellion.
And that's a good trilogy as one film. If you another one to watch, I mean, people always talk about Andrei Tarkovsky, but Béla Tarr, a Hungarian filmmaker, Satan Tango is a 7.5-hour movie, but the thing is, it's got an accordion effect because it has these long scenes. A person will be walking, for example, for 7 minutes, and the camera will follow him. But in your mind compresses it. And
what's this called?
Satan Tango. It's one word. Satantango. Satan Tango. But his best film is the one with the whale's eye, the Werkmeister Harmonies. I mean, that's just a one of that I would put in a top 10 possibly, or top 20.
There was one that was slipping my mind that I was gonna say I would have up
and
there.
Tarkovsky again has Solaris.
Three Colors trilogy. I think as a whole, that's one of the greatest things I've ever seen. Maybe as a whole, the greatest thing I've seen done in film. Maybe in my personal opinion, as a whole, all three films together, beginning, middle, end. The white's not as strong as blue and red.
White is a misfire. I mean, it's a good film, but it's not a great film like the other two.
Exactly. The
Decalogue has some good stuff, has some bad stuff.
I thought your review of Decalogue was the best review of Decalogue I've read. I feel like a lot of people just like kind of went back after the Three Colors trilogy and like held it as like total masterpiece. I think there's some great things in Decalogue, and I thought what you said about the episode of when the murder episode about state versus execution, state execution, where the guy murders in the car, and then he's sentenced to death. that episode of Decalogue is praised as like the best one.
Mm.
And in your review, you recognize it as one of the weaker ones, and I agreed. When I watched it, I was kind of underwhelmed. I feel like the first episode and some of the earlier ones, and then there's one about the guy, kind of like the Rear Window one, where he's like spying across, watching through his window, watching the woman. I thought that one was really good.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who. Well, to go back to Tarkovsky, uh, the Ivan, not Ivan Ilyich. What's the one?
Andrei Rublev.
Andrei Rublev, Solaris, and then Mira are his three big ones. Mira is just. I have to say that's the one I picked. Mira is just. It's just a breathtaking film in terms of the mixture of memory and stuff. He never.
It's hard to take in, honestly. The Mirror's so powerful. It's a little hard to take in the first time you watch it.
I actually got probably 95% of that, but I mean, yeah, it's the one of those you could rewatch it and get something. Andrei Rublev is a film that initially I thought put as a near great film, but it's one of the few times I've changed my mind and it's gone up in my estimation because it sticks in the mind and it's a film that's very similar in terms of its progression as La Dolce Vita, except it doesn't follow just one character. Let me think. If you're talking science fiction, I mentioned 2001 Solaris. The original Alien. The original one.
Yes.
Aliens is a very good action film.
A little cheesy in moments, though.
Yeah. Terminator 2 is also a good. But then again, they ruined it. Oh, it's like, why do they have to do these They're totally bankrupt with ideas. Franchise. Oh, I will tell you one thing. If you watch, I've watched now the first two seasons of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. The best Star Trek since the original one, bar none.
Really?
Yes.
Hell yeah.
I had given up on Star Trek. If I'm ranking the Star Trek shows, the best one is the original one. The second best one is Strange New Worlds, although it has the potential to be better. Now, people complain because like there's a lesbian character who's a bit snarky and whatnot, and you have to a lot for the change in the real world. But then I would say Voyager. Then I would say probably The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Enterprise. And I thought Enterprise, you couldn't get worse than Enterprise as a show. But that Discovery was worse. Picard was terrible. I mean...
And my boss, my editor, loves Star Trek. I'll have to ask him if he's watching that new one. I'm sure he'll know. He loves. That's his favorite. I think y'all are probably around the same age.
Well, if yeah, okay.
So back to Keys, like the Three Colors trilogy. Have you seen the Double Life of Veronica?
Yes. No, Veronique.
Veronique. Okay. Yeah.
Yes, and that I think might be his best single film.
Okay. Yeah, it might be.
The actress who does it, I remember when I saw that, I was like, God, I want her. I mean, the actress, I forget her name now, but it's like...
Well, the one in blue, too, Julia Binoche, I'm in love with her as well. She's like one of my favorite actors.
That's the kind of woman that, before I got married, I would dream of, a babe like her who's beautiful, but not necessarily supermodel kind of gorgeous. But
great film.
Here's a film that very few people know about, or it's a very niche film. There's a 1973, is it Hungarian, a Czechoslovakian French film called Fantastic Planet. It's animated. I would watch that. I'd be interested to see what you think of that. I wouldn't say it's a great film, but it's an interesting film that dares. It has a few things that fail that prevent it from being great, but it's ideationally it's such a unique thing. and it's
That one might be on
animation.
Criterion. I feel like I've seen that on the
Yeah,
Criterion
yeah, it
channel
probably is
before.
on Criterion. Fantastic Planet. It's only about 80 or 90 minutes. Another thing that you should,
I'm watching High and Low tonight,
yeah,
so I will
another
go
thing you should,
Fantastic Planet next,
another thing you
and
should
then I
watch.
need to do Santiago. Okay, did you watch? Okay, you go ahead. You go ahead.
Wait a minute. I want to tell you something when I get off here. Let's see. Uh, um, oh, I'm sorry. What did you say? I just wanted to write something before I forgot it down.
Um, uh, oh, you were saying something, and I had interrupted you, and I can't remember. I forgot what I was going to say.
Okay.
So I wrote down Fantastic Planet. I was going to ask you if you saw the Godzilla film that came out last year. It's a Japanese one.
Godzilla minus one.
Yeah, it wasn't
I
bad.
I haven't. I haven't. For me, I watched Godzilla film. The last Godzilla film that I saw in the movie was '85, which was a follow up to the original one. And then they did, other stuff. I saw the '98 Godzilla film, which I don't think was nearly as bad as people thought it was. It wasn't a good film, but it wasn't an all time terrible film.
Yeah.
And I'm not interested in Godzilla and King Kong. This Godzilla minus one,
Oh yeah, those I'm not interested in.
yeah,
But
Godzilla
this
minus.
one I went and saw it in theaters, and I just saw a couple good reviews, and it was playing. I went and saw it like I don't know sometime last year, and I was shocked. It had a good story, and it was like it went back to the post-war roots of
Yeah,
Godzilla, and I thought it was. I think you should check it out. I'd like to know what you think of it
yeah, I may.
if you grew up on Godzilla.
Yeah, it's one of those things though. I was very disappointed with the '80s and '90s and Millennium Godzillas. Why do they have to redo so many of them? Like Godzilla versus King Kong, Godzilla versus Mothra.
Yeah.
You know, far more interesting than the monster versus. What they should do, because I think they're doing a comic book that I saw a video on where Godzilla kills Superman again. So Godzilla is one of the few characters that ever kill Superman, although I'm sure he'll
Yeah.
be resurrected, or it's a fantasy story or something. Not that I was ever big on comic books, but and speaking of comic book, have you ever seen like what is it, the Watchmen? Someone once, wanted me to watch.
The 2000s one, or the TV show?
No, I'm talking the actual comic book. I actually have
Oh
it.
no,
I actually have it here, and
I've never read the
people
comic
have
book.
like with the Bob Dylan thing has tried to say. One second. They've tried to say that this was one of the great novels of the 20th century. It's a fucking comic book. It's not a novel, and it's
Okay.
not. It's not even a particularly. I would say it's not great. I mean, it's got some moments, but it's very predictable. It. I. It's like when people talk about. I've often said people will talk about other art, and they'll say, "Oh, he's got the eye of a poet. He's got the language of a poet." People know that poetry is the highest art form because it does the most with the least. Then you get people, though, that want to take these lesser art forms and instead of making them the best, they want to compare it with other art forms that are greater, like poetry. The greatest sonnet is always going to be better than the greatest page of a comic book because it does more with less.
Mhm.
And art, and for example, people then will talk about, is gaming, is that an art form?
Oh
Well,
my
it
God.
uses it uses some art in terms of the backgrounds or whatnot,
Yeah.
and you can talk about some storyline. But when you are able to choose all this different stuff and go in
Yeah.
different directions, and especially if it's a game where you either win or lose, that's not art.
Yeah, I've played a lot of games. I grew up playing games, but I never took the medium as the same way I did as like watching a movie or reading a book,
But
uh,
but but then the
or even
insistence.
listening to a song.
Why do people want to make it as if it's an art form? Can't you
I
just
don't know.
appreciate it for being a game? There's
I had a
nothing
friend
wrong
tell
with
me
games.
and there was this game that came out called Elden Ring last year. That it's considered one of the best games ever. My friend told me his first day playing it. He said, "I think this is the greatest piece of art I've ever experienced in my life." I was like, "What? You just logged in. You're looking around. Like I think Elon Musk actually said something similar. That Elden Ring was like one of the greatest pieces of art, and also he says the greatest novel ever written is
Thank
the Lord of the
God that
Rings.
Elon Musk is not an American citizen because he'd
Oh
try
my
running for
god.
president. And
Yeah.
this guy, I think is if he was ever if he could run for president, he would be even more dangerous than Trump because Trump is a total idiot and con
Yeah,
man.
he's a moron.
But
Yeah.
Musk, while he's no genius like people claim him to be,
Mhm.
is smarter than Trump and is more
Mhm.
dangerous because he has some smarts.
Yeah, no, thank God. You're right. He's not an American citizen. That guy is, you know, Twitter. Are you on Twitter at all or anything
I
like
was.
that?
I got kicked off. You want to know why I got kicked off?
Yeah,
Because remember when there was that attack at the Pittsburgh synagogue a few years ago,
yeah.
and that Ann Coulter had posted some shit
Oh
about it.
God.
Basically, she was clapping about Jews dying or whatnot, and I just up and called her a cunt on my thing. And they suspended me and took my account away. So the lesson you learn from social media is sort of like what I said about the guy who threatened me about in the legal system is that if you have enough followers and you cheer on the death of Jews
Yeah,
like a Nazi, you're safe. But if you call out, uh, uh, a Jew hating
yeah,
wannabe Nazi and call her a name, that's not good. It's like with Facebook too. I've reported, for example, when I see instances of animal abuse. Have you ever seen these animal abuse videos where they'll take a frog and a couple of scorpions and they'll see who will win? And this violates Facebook's stated thing about animal violence and whatnot. But
yeah.
because it gets a million views or something, they don't
Uh,
care.
it's just the thing. There's so much shit content, and I would love to do. We've ran some time, and I gotta eat dinner at some point tonight. But I would love to do. We're getting on this topic, just the destructive nature of social media. Just have a
Oh,
conversation about that because I think it's one of the most destructive things happening. What it does to people's brains. I mean, you got people like Jordan Peterson that people watch and get their opinions from, and they think
yeah.
this guy is smart and intelligent.
Well, Alex Sherman on his
Informing the way
website
they view the world.
Automachination, we ripped into Jordan Peterson. We ripped into this
Yeah.
guy named Christopher Langan, who claims to be the smartest guy in America. I mean,
Oh
they're
my
both
God.
idiots.
Yeah.
But social media is terrible because there used to be a saying before the internet that the wisdom of the common man. Well, the internet has totally proven that wrong.
Yeah.
The common man is a boob.
Yeah.
He's an
Yeah,
idiot.
he is. He's a moron. And that's another thing that a battle at the newspaper is, we write stories and do research and get sources and we write like journalists. But there's like these other websites around where we live that are just like social media, clickbaity websites that, are somehow now our competitors. But they don't
Yeah,
have anybody who's like a journalist. They just copy and paste a press release onto their website and
yeah.
claim they're a news site.
And the thing is, there's so much in modern society that's wrong. Like I don't like idiots who don't know anything. But
Neither do I.
the thing is, if you look at science, and for example, I'm not religious, but I didn't like those four horsemen of atheists. That Daniel Dennett. I once interviewed him. I wasn't impressed with him.
Yeah.
Dawkins comes
The
off
guys
as
who
an
make
asshole
that
at
their
times.
whole thing.
Christopher Hitchens was a total ass. He made millions off of the Iraq War with
Yeah.
his reporting and stuff. There, and then the other guy, Sam, what's his name? Sam,
I don't know.
supposed philosopher guy, Sam Harris. He's terrible too. He's a raging bigot, and it's like these guys.
Anybody who gets famous off of being an atheist,
Yeah.
that's enough.
The only thing
that's
you
like,
need to be an atheist is I don't believe that there's a God. That's
yeah.
it. There's no other requirements for being an atheist.
These guys are just grifters.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
And when you they to me in a way are almost as bad as the televangelist types.
Oh my gosh. Those are I mean, there's a funny show on HBO, a satire about them, the Righteous Gemstones. It's got a couple good episodes with John Goodman that are make fun of the televangelists. And they move in the church to a Sears in one of the episodes, and he says, "This used to be a Sears where you could get a couch, but now you can buy Jesus. Can I get an amen?" And they go, "But you can't put him on layaway."